We tend to think of law as just a collection of rules and punishments, right? But what is its actual purpose in our society? This explainer is based on the works of Professor Vihar Kiskinov, who takes a deep dive into this very question, tracing how the function of law has evolved from ancient times all the way to our digital age. So let's get right to it. What does law actually do? I mean, beyond just sorting out right from wrong, what is its core job? Is it simply a tool for settling arguments, or is it something, well, something much bigger? That's the main puzzle we're going to piece together today. And to figure this out, here's our roadmap. First, we'll define what we even mean by law's function. Then, we'll take a trip through its history, see how it connects with the state, look at a new systems approach for today's world, and finally, we'll peek into the future. All right, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about the function of law, what are we really getting at? Well, Professor Kiskinov shows us that there are two key ways to think about this. In a broad sense, you can think about its huge, society-wide purpose. Its goal to keep the peace and create order. But in a narrow sense, it's about its direct, specific impact, like how a contract law affects the deal between you and someone you're buying from. You really need both of these viewpoints to see the whole picture. And of course, this idea of what law is for, it's not set in stone. As you're about to see, it has changed dramatically over the centuries, as societies themselves have transformed. In the ancient world, people saw law as something almost divine, a kind of cosmic rulebook that brought order to everything. Then came ancient Rome, and the focus got way more down to earth, honing in on private stuff like property and personal disputes. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and law becomes this powerful tool, almost a weapon in the big showdowns between church and state. And then, with the Industrial Age, the whole metaphor changes. People started seeing law as a kind of social machine you could use to engineer a better society. This quote from the Roman jurist Gaius just nails that Roman perspective. For hundreds of years, the legal universe was thought to revolve around just these three things: people, their stuff, and what they did with it. This intense focus on private law was unbelievably influential. But here's the thing, that's not the whole story. While private law definitely took center stage, something else was bubbling up under the surface. You had thinkers like Pliny the Younger who started making this radical argument that even the ruler, the big guy, was under the law. This was a really early hint of law's public function, not just settling squabbles, but actually shaping and giving legitimacy to the state itself. The Industrial Revolution completely flipped the script. Thinkers like Rudolf von Euring came along and said, hey, wait a minute, law isn't just about balancing one person's will against another's. They started seeing its real job as managing the interests of society as a whole. This was a massive leap, looking at law as a tool for shaping things on a much, much bigger scale. And this leads us to a really crucial idea, the concept of the rule of law, or what German thinkers famously called the Rechtsstaat. This changed, well, pretty much everything. So a Rechtsstaat is a state that's governed by law, not just one that uses law. See the difference? Law stops being just a tool the ruler uses on everyone else. It becomes the actual blueprint for the state. It's what organizes the government and what gives its power any real legitimacy. And with this new idea, law suddenly gets a bunch of new job descriptions. It gets an organizing function, literally laying out the structure of the state. It has a legitimizing function, giving the state its authority. And it has an integrative function, pulling the whole society together under one shared set of rules. But here's the twist. The world didn't stop changing. And those older models, even the powerful idea of the Rechtsstaat, well, they might not be enough to handle the world we live in now. Think about it. We live in an information age now with things like e-government and virtual reality. So Professor Kiskinov asks a really important question. Can a view of law that was built for an industrial society really work for the complexities of our digital one? The answer is probably not. This is where something called a systems methodology comes in. Instead of looking at law like a dusty old rule book, this approach sees it as a living, dynamic system. Its real functions don't come from any one rule, but from the messy, complex, day-to-day interaction of all its parts, the laws, the courts, the people, all of it, working together. And we desperately need this new approach because of three huge game changers. We've got the information society, we have the rise of e-government, and we have totally new playgrounds like virtual reality. Each one of these is pushing our legal system in ways it was never designed for. Let's make this feel real for a second. With e-government, the law actually becomes the ideal blueprint for how those digital services should be built. In virtual reality, law isn't just refereeing a world that's already there. It's literally building the rules of that world from the ground up. And when legal rules are baked directly into computer code, the way law is carried out changes completely. This analogy really sums up the whole incredible journey. Law started out as a simple ruler, something you'd use to measure and settle disputes. Then it became a complex blueprint, used to design the entire state. And now it's becoming something like a dynamic operating system that runs our new virtual worlds. So, where does that leave us? Let's tie all these threads together and look at what this new vision for the future of law really is. This table lays out the whole evolution perfectly. We went from simply regulating things that already existed, like people and property. Then, as the modern state rose, law's main job became organizing that state. And now, in our information age, its newest and maybe most profound function is to actually construct brand new realities. So what are the big takeaways here? First, the function of law is never standing still. It's always evolving. Second, the idea of the rule of law handed law the critical job of organizing state power. Third, to get a handle on law today, a systems approach is absolutely essential. And finally, the most mind-bending shift of all. Law is no longer just a referee for reality. It's becoming an architect of reality. And that leaves us with one final and I think vital question. If law is now in the business of building the very worlds we're going to live in online, who do we trust to be the architect? It's a question that's going to shape all of our futures.